In the year 690, a 67-year-old woman did something literally no one had ever done in thousands of years of Chinese history. She took the dragon throne for herself. She started a whole new dynasty, called herself Emperor, and became the only woman to ever officially rule China. Her name was Wu Zetian. But how does a teenage girl in the emperor's palace, who was supposed to be forgotten, climb all the way to the top to become the absolute ruler of one of the world's most powerful empires? This isn't just a story about ambition. It's a real-life playbook on how to win at all costs. A playbook that was written with the bodies of her enemies, total defiance of tradition, and maybe even the blood of her own kids. This is the insane story of how she not only seized the throne, but held on to it with an iron grip. Wu Zetian's story starts not at the top, but at the absolute bottom, in a palace that was basically a fancy prison. She was born in 624, and because her dad was rich, she actually got an education, which was super rare for girls back then. She was so smart and beautiful that she got noticed by Emperor Taizong, and at just 14 years old, she was thrown into the imperial palace. But here's the thing. The palace had hundreds of women all fighting for the emperor's attention. Her chances were basically zero. The emperor called her beautiful girl, but he wasn't that into her. She was a low-level consort, which meant she was on track to be forgotten forever. But Wu refused to accept that fate. While she was in the palace, she wasn't just serving the emperor, she was studying, watching how people won and lost power. And most importantly, she made a secret connection with someone else, the emperor's quiet son, Crown Prince Li Ji. They started a crazy, dangerous affair, and that secret would be her ticket to the top. When the old emperor died in 649, it should have been game over for Wu Zetian. The rules said that an emperor's concubines who didn't have kids had to be sent away to a monastery to be a nun for the rest of their lives. This should have been the end of her story. But in an insane plot twist, the new emperor, Gaozong, hadn't forgotten her. He was still totally in love with her, and he did something that shocked everyone. He went to the monastery and brought Wu Zetian back to the palace to be his concubine. This was a massive scandal, but for Wu, it was a second chance, and she was not going to waste it. Back in the palace, she faced two huge rivals, the current Empress Wang and the emperor's favorite, Consort Xiao. Wu knew she couldn't just be prettier to win, she had to be more ruthless. She started getting the palace staff on her side, building a network of spies to report on everything her rivals did. Then she made one of the most infamous and dark moves in all of history. In 654, Wu had a baby girl. The story goes that the Empress Wang, who didn't have any children, came to visit the baby. A little while after she left, the baby was found dead, suffocated in her crib. Wu went into a full meltdown of grief and accused the Empress of murder. The emperor, who was already tired of Empress Wang, believed her. Did Wu really murder her own child just to frame her enemy? It's one of the biggest mysteries in history. But we know what happened next. Empress Wang and Consort Xiao were kicked out of the palace, but Wu wasn't done. She allegedly had their hands and feet cut off and their bodies thrown into giant barrels of wine until they drowned. This was a brutal message to anyone who thought about crossing her. In 655, Wu Zetian was crowned the new Empress of China. As the new Empress, Wu's power over her husband, the Emperor, grew to an insane level. She wasn't just his wife, she was his #1 advisor. Then, in 660, the Emperor had a massive stroke that left him barely able to see or run the country. So Wu Zetian stepped up. She started ruling from behind a screen, literally telling her husband what to say in official meetings. Soon they were called the Two Saints, but everyone knew she was the one really in charge. She was reading all the government documents, giving all the orders, and deciding the fate of the entire empire. Wu was now running everything. This proved she was more than just a schemer, she was an amazing leader. But with all this power, she became super paranoid. She created a massive spy network and her own secret police to destroy anyone who might challenge her. If an official questioned her or she even suspected they were disloyal, they were fired, exiled, or straight up executed. Her ruthlessness was legendary, and she even went after her own family. She was making sure that when the emperor finally died, there would be nobody left to stop her. When Emperor Gaozong died in 683, the throne went to Wu's third son, Emperor Zhongzong. But he was just a figurehead. Wu was the real power behind the scenes. The moment her son tried to act on his own and give his wife's family important jobs, Wu had him arrested for treason, fired him as emperor, and put him under house arrest. She overthrew her own kid after just a few months. Next, she put her younger, weaker son, Ruizong, on the throne. He was a total puppet who was locked away in the palace while his mom ruled everything openly. The entire government was hers. She then went on a massive purge, getting rid of tons of members of the old imperial family, eliminating every possible threat. At the same time, she launched the biggest propaganda campaign ever to justify something that was supposed to be impossible: a woman becoming emperor. Tradition said a female ruler was as unnatural as a hen crowing like a rooster. So Wu turned to Buddhism. She paid monks to spread holy texts that claimed she was the reincarnation of a god named Maitreya, who was destined to come to earth as a female ruler and bring peace and wealth. And it worked. In 690, with nobody left to stop her, she forced her puppet son to quit. Wu Zetian took the throne, created her own Zhou dynasty, and became the first and only woman in Chinese history to rule as emperor. Stealing the throne was one thing, but keeping it was an even bigger challenge. Wu Zetian knew people saw her as an illegitimate ruler, so she governed with an insane mix of total control and brilliant reforms. To hold on to her power, she made her secret police and spy network an official part of the government. She had special copper petition boxes set up in the capital so that any citizen could report corrupt officials or conspiracies directly to her. This created a climate of fear for her enemies, but it also let her stop rebellions before they even started. But fear wasn't her only weapon. Wu was a genius reformer who knew a happy country was a safe country. Her biggest move was to open up the imperial exams to men from any social class, not just the super rich. By hiring people based on talent instead of family connections, she broke the power of the old families who hated her and created a new government of officials who were loyal to her. She even interviewed the top candidates herself. She passed new laws to help peasants, which made her popular with the masses. She rebuilt the military, secured China's borders, and under her rule, the Silk Road trade route boomed. She sponsored incredible art and literature, and her reign is now seen as a golden age for culture. With these moves, she proved she wasn't just a thief. She was one of the most effective rulers China ever had. Wu Zetian's reign was one of the craziest political stories in history, and people still argue about her today. If you love stories about historical figures who completely broke the system, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next upload. No reign lasts forever. Wu Zetian's ended in 705. When she was old, she started relying too much on her young lovers, the Zhang brothers, which made her court furious. They staged a coup and forced the sick 81-year-old Empress to give up the throne to her son, the same one she had exiled years ago. The old Tang Dynasty was back, and Wu died later that year. For centuries, historians absolutely trashed her. They called her a cruel, evil, and bloodthirsty tyrant who went against both heaven and earth by taking a man's job. They only focused on the murders, the spies, and the terror. But today, people are seeing her in a new light. Historians now admit she was one of China's most skilled and effective rulers. Her reforms made the empire stronger, her support of the arts made it more beautiful, and her leadership created decades of stability and wealth that set the stage for one of China's greatest eras. And here's the wildest part. Her final resting place is marked by a giant stone monument that's over 20 feet tall. But unlike every other emperor's monument, which is covered in words praising their great deeds, Wu Zetian's is completely blank. Maybe she knew her story was just too complex and too legendary for any words to do it justice. So what do you think? Was Wu Zetian a ruthless villain who murdered her way to the top? Or was she a visionary genius whose brutal tactics were the only way to win in a world designed to shut her out? Let us know what you think in the comments below.